The roof is closed. There are supposed to be storms in the area, so for the time being, we'll play indoor baseball for a while here at Rogers Center. Jay Happ goes to the mound. Happ making his 18th start of the season against the Detroit Tigers. Brad Ausmuth, the skipper of the Tigers, in his third season with Detroit. Last night, the Blue Jays won 5-4 as they scored a run in the 7th and 2 in the 8th. Let's take a look at the lineup for the Tigers. 45 and 41, Ian Kinsler. Right at the top of the order, hitting .294 for the season, has 4 hits and 13 at-bats against Jay Happ, the Blue Jays starter. And Justin Upton, the left fielder, he too has hit well against Happ. He's 4 for 6 with 3 extra base hits. Upton hit his 199th career home run here last night. You'll get another look at Jay Happ here tonight.
33-year-old left-hander is looking to become the 6th Blue Jays pitcher to record at least 12 wins prior to the All-Star break in club history, and first since Roy Halladay won 12 back in 2006. In Jay's last start, one of his best this season, he beat the Indians, went 7 innings, giving up just 1 run. He did not walk a batter and struck out 11 Indians hitters.
He didn't walk a batter, as you mentioned, and he was very good in that ball game. He got a ton of run support. Blue Jays won 13-1. But he was so good in that last start, he could have beat anybody on that outing. Ian Kinsler is set. Happ is ready. Here's the first pitch of the ball game. It is in there for a strike, and we are underway. Happ quickly ahead, 0-2. Jay Happ went 4-1 in June, but he really had some tough luck. His ERA was elevated over 5, but wins are all that starters really need to know about, and he won 4 games in his 5 starts. Jay Happ at 11-3, his ERA at 3.54 for the season.
Jay's going to attack with that fastball. We'll see a lot of fastballs from him, and I think we're going to see a lot of fastballs inside to this predominantly right-handed hitting lineup here tonight in Detroit.
Russell Martin did a good job of working the ball inside with Hutchison on the mound last night.
Going to try to elevate one here.
And he does. Well, that high fastball works very well for Jay Happ. He records the first strikeout of the ball game against Kinsler with a high fastball. Defensively, the Blue Jays have really played well of late. They have tightened it up dramatically. It is Saunders, Millar, and Carrera in the outfield. Donaldson and Tulowitzki, they do a terrific job on the left side. Barney and Smoke on the right side, and Russell Martin back behind the plate for the Jays.
And the former All-Star and Gold Glover Troy Tulowitzki was flashing the leather again last night here against the Tigers. He has really stabilized the defense since coming over in that deadline deal last year from Colorado.
Cameron Maybin goes after the second pitch of the at-bat. It's a ball and a strike. Maybin hitting .345 for the season. He was 0 for 3 with a walk and a strikeout in last night's game. Happ let that one get away from him. 2-1 now. Blue Jays won that game last night, as we mentioned, 5-4. Justin Verlander was pretty good last night. He left with the lead and ends up with a no decision. He really used a lot of changeups last night, something that we haven't seen a lot from him in the past.
He's a different pitcher now. In his prime, of course, he was a power pitcher. We talked about that. He used to pitch at 95, 96, top out at 99 and 100 when he needed to get there and reach back. But now he's pitching at 90 to 93, 94, touching 95. But he's incorporated the secondary pitches. And the changeup was a great weapon for him last night.
As a breaking ball lifted down the right side, Cabrera's not going to get it. It's foul and into the seats. John Gibbons is riding this lineup right now with Barney in it. He's got Cabrera out there almost every day in right field until Bautista can rejoin this ball club. Darwin Barney's done a good job, and John Gibbons is going to keep his name in the lineup. There's a base hit to right. Maben singles into right field, and one out single.
Super Slow-Mo Cam. Brought to you by Rogers 4K TV. Get closer to the action with 4 times the resolution of HD alone.
So Cameron Maben continues to rack up the hits. Enters this game hitting 345. Now, Miguel Cabrera, the number 3 hitter. Cabrera takes a strike. Cabrera was 0 for 4 with a strikeout in last night's game. Happ gets ahead 0-2. The Blue Jays 49 and 39. They're 10 games over 500, 2 games back of the Baltimore Orioles. There goes Maben. The ball is fouled into the seats, and he'll have to go back to first. Maben has 9 stolen bases.
It's an 0-2 count with Miguel Cabrera at the plate. See, Cameron Maben's just taking off. He is guessing first move right there, and he guessed right. If that's a ball, he's got that base stolen very easily. Not too many left-handed pitchers can read that when they lift their leg and a runner goes and put that foot down in a hurry and fire it over to first.
Another 0-2 pitch. Cut on and missed. Cabrera strikes out. 2 strikeouts in the inning for Jay Happ.
Well, Jay used to pitch at the top of the zone a little bit more frequently, but now he's mixing in the fastball and the slider down and in. He'll elevate late in the count, getting a big hitter like Cabrera to chase, and that's a good thing when you see a hitter like Miguel Cabrera expanding his zone.
Victor Martinez, switch hitting DH, batting right-handed against Happ. Just in case Maben was thinking about running, Happ checks in on him at first. Ground ball off the end of the bat. Barney will step on the bag, and that'll do it for the Tigers in the top of the first. They get a 1-out single and nothing more. Start right. John Gibbons, Malcolm playing great baseball right now. And He's done a good job of keeping this lineup in there every day. And you look at the top of the order, Ezekiel Carrera has been leading off. And then down in the 6th spot, Troy Tulowitzki against Mike Pelfrey, tonight's starter for Detroit. 7 for 20 with a double and a home run. Tulowitzki's had a great homestand here. And Darwin Barney, he's got a 6-game hit streak, 9 for his last 25 over the course of those 6 games. Darwin has earned a lot more regular playing time of late because of the way he's swinging that bat.
32-year-old right-hander Mike Pelfrey making his 18th appearance. It's his 17th start of the season here tonight. His last start at Tampa against the Rays, he did not factor in the decision. Went 6 1/3 innings, giving up just 1 run though against the Rays.
As a first pitch strike to Carrera. Ezekiel Carrera has done a nice job filling in top of the batting order. 1 for 5 in the game last night. Pelfrey misses up and in. It's a ball and a strike. Ground ball right to Iglesias. Shortstop to Cabrera. 1 down. Now, just like the Blue Jays, the Tigers have a very good defensive ball club. In the outfield, they've got Justin Upton in left. Cameron Maybin can really cover ground in center. And Michael Vilas gets to start with Jay Happ on the mound. Castellanos, Iglesias, Kinsler, and Cabrera from 3rd to 1st. And James McCann, a fine young catcher, teams up with Mike Pelfrey tonight.
And Ian Kinsler, 4-time All-Star, gets his 82nd start at second base. He played in 154 games last year, 161 back in 2014. He's been a workhorse for the Tigers in the lineup every day atop that lineup.
Josh Donaldson, he was quite a workhorse last night. Got on base every time he came to the plate. Donaldson's average at .305. Got 47 extra base hits and he's driven home 60. Two and 0 count to Donaldson. Borderline strike. He takes a pitch upstairs. Joe, that's one thing he has really been good at during this recent hot streaks. In fact, he's not swinging at borderline pitches.
And that's a big pitch right there. And you remember earlier in the season, a lot of these Blue Jays hitters took exception to some umpires' calls. Those balls just in off the corner. That's a big pitch because now it's 3-1. If the umpire makes that call, it's 2-2.
Look at Donaldson. Fights it off and flares it into right. He starts his ball game by getting on base with a single.
Mike Pelfrey is a 4-pitch pitcher. The fastball will average about 93 miles per hour. Curveball, slider, and split finger. And I'm going to keep an eye on that split finger tonight. He's also mixed in a changeup in his last start, but that's something brand new. And when things aren't going very well, you try to get creative, and that's what the 32-year-old is doing right here in a Blue Jays uniform, in a Tigers uniform.
Edwin Encarnacion. He takes a first pitch strike. Edwin was 0 for 4 in the game last night. He walked and struck out twice. Blue Jays had 12 hits. They stranded 14 base runners, and in the end they were able to come out on top at 5-4. Right on the outside corner for strike 2. Ground ball. Kinsler to Iglesias, back to first, double play. Pelfrey with that good sinking fastball gets Encarnacion to ground into the inning-ending double play. We've played an inning here at Rogers Center. No score.
You know, long before he officially became an All-Star today, the question before spring training was whether or not Michael Saunders could come back setback free after last year's knee injury. He admitted to me today that he had some dark moments that tested his mental fortitude. He credited his wife Jessica, as well as a quote from an MMA wrestler about whether or not he could actually come back. He said rust is actually a lack of preparation. Now he's an All-Star. Now he has the support of the country behind him and the nation voting him into the All-Star game, Buck.
A terrific first half of the season, and Michael Saunders says thank you to the fans as he received the second highest vote total in the final vote in Major League history. Freddie Freeman of the Atlanta Braves has the highest total, and Michael Saunders received 17.7 million votes. So credit to all you fans that logged on and voted, and I'm sure Michael is very appreciative of your efforts. And Castellanos goes after that first pitch. Saunders over to cut it off and get it back into the infield. Castellanos is swinging the bat well. He has homered in 3 straight games, including his 17th home run of the season here in last night's game.
He has really turned into an accomplished hitter in his 3rd full season in the big leagues. This is a slider from Jay Happ, stayed out over the plate a little bit, but Nick is right on it, timing it perfectly, drilling it into left field. He's really been able to cover a wide part of the zone, laying off pitches out of the zone.
Justin Upton goes after the first pitch. Upton and Castellanos had most of the damage for the Tigers last night. Castellanos homered. He was 1 for 3 with a walk. Upton had a home run and a double. He finished up 2 for 4. Jay Happ finding that strike zone quickly to Upton. One and 2, nobody out. Upton with 9 home runs and 199 career home runs. Wouldn't chase that high fastball. Looked like it might have caught the top of the strike zone.
Tough pitch to lay off for a hitter. We saw Miguel Cabrera chase that in the first inning. That's what Jay will do. He'll throw that fastball down and in. He'll go slider down and in and then elevate right there. And that pitch is closer to your eyes. As a hitter, it looks good. Hard to lay off.
Upton extended his arms and got a piece of that pitch away.
Jay has incorporated a two-seam fastball a little bit more since last year, and it's helped him get some more ground balls. What he's done is he's become more of an efficient pitcher, really just in attack mode, saying, here you go, hit it. And he's been very successful staying around the zone.
Good pitch, catches that inside corner right at the top of the strike zone. That's 3 strikeouts for Happ as he gets Upton.
Good setup by Russell Martin. He called it, wants it inside, and Jay does a nice job getting that full extension and executing the pitch. That's the pitch when sometimes guys leave that out over the plate. A guy like Justin Upton put it in the seats. Happ gets it right out there, fully extends to the mitt and through the mitt.
James McCann, the young catcher, steps in. McCann had 2 hits in last night's game. McCann drove in the go-ahead run with a single with 2 outs in the 4th. That gets away from Russell Martin, and Castellanos hustles into second. So that takes the Blue Jays out of that double play situation.
A fastball up and away from the right-hander. Looks like Russell just went up a little too far, went off the thumb of his glove.
It's a pass ball charge to Russell Martin. Two and 0 count to James McCann. McCann had the RBI single in the 4th. He also doubled and scored in the 7th. That high fastball again, right at the top of the zone. Joe, as you mentioned, it looks very inviting, but it's difficult to square it up.
Jay's a big guy, and I think that fastball, he provides a lot of deception. He's 6'5". He comes from that high angle, but I think he's got a shorter, quicker arm than most big guys do, and that ball's on you. It's very explosive, Russell says, as it approaches the hitting zone.
Went right back to it. Back-to-back strikeouts after the leadoff single.
Well, until they stop swinging at it, you're going to keep throwing it. Just a 4-seam fastball. See the grip on the baseball, elevating it, and it's right at that spot where it's just a little too high as a hitter to get on top of. But it's also very difficult to lay off.
2 outs. Mike Aviles. It's a start in right field. They came into the game defensively in last night's game. Pops this one up over the Tigers dugout. Aviles led off the 9th inning against Roberto Osuna, grounded out to shortstop. Troy Tulowitzki made a fine play to retire Aviles in his only plate appearance last night. No score, top of the 2nd. Really shading Aviles toward the right field line. Pereira is way over in right. There's that inside fastball. Jay Happ strikes out the side. A leadoff single to Castellanos, and then Happ really buckles down. The pass ball allowed Castellanos to get in scoring position, but Happ strikes out Upton, McCann, and Aviles.
On Earth. It's the 104th edition of the Calgary Stampede. It goes until July 15th on Sportsnet 1 and Sportsnet Now. Buck?
Thank you, Arash. A terrific sporting event at Calgary Stampede. Michael Saunders, the All-Star, will lead things off for the Blue Jays. Michael got the news about 4:45 this afternoon. The voting closed at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Changeup misses. Hits a ball on the strike. Michael becomes the 19th Canadian to make a Major League All-Star team. It's an impressive list. Michael Saunders, of course, Russell Martin, Joey Votto, Jesse Crane, Justin Morneau, Jason Bay, Ryan Dempster, Eric Gagne, Paul Quantrill, Larry Walker, Jeff Zimmerman, Jason Dixon, Terry Poole, John Hiller, Fergie Jenkins, Claude Ramon, Oscar Judd, Jeff Heath, and George Selkirk.
Wow, what a list.
Pretty impressive list of All-Stars, and Michael is the most recent. Fouls it off the catcher's glove. Michael has had 5 doubles during the homestand. He has a homer and 7 RBIs in the 8 games. He got his average at .298. Covers that outside pitch. Pelfrey, basically a fastball changeup pitcher, and if he doesn't get that sinking fastball down in the zone, it can be a rough outing for him.
He needs it to be moving, sinking, and getting away from the barrel. That's a good pitch right there, but it's a nice job by Saunders fouling it off to stay alive, and now you force Pelfrey to come back in the zone one more time.
And he fouls this one off. Mike Pelfrey spent 7 years with the New York Mets. His prime seasons 2008, 9, and 10. 2011 he made 33 starts. 3-2 pitch, ball 4. A leadoff walk issued by Pelfrey. Let's check in with Jamie Campbell. Matt Shoemaker is the starter for the Angels. He is 3-9 for the season. Ubaldo Jimenez 5-8. He is 1-6 for his career against the Angels. Here is Russell Martin, one of the 19 Canadian All-Stars. Russell has been very productive of late. He's had a nice little stretch on this homestand. He has driven in 7 runs in his 7 games during the 8-game homestand.
Seen Russell with a much more controlled swing lately since he's heated up earlier in the season. Saw him pulling off the baseball an awful lot with that front side, but now he's keeping that front shoulder in there and thinking right center. He says when he's best, he is shooting the ball in the right center gap. That does not mean you're always hitting it that way, but your thought process there keeps you on the ball a little bit longer.
Russell doesn't like that call from the veteran Joe West. It was up and might have been borderline away. One and two now to the Blue Jays catcher. Michael Saunders at first. Troy Tulowitzki is on deck. Close pitch. Pelfrey makes a good pitch like that. He's got to have that call.
And you could see that he wanted that call. He kept waiting for Joe West to go up with the right arm, and it didn't happen. It's where sometimes as a hitter, Russell questions Joe on that previous borderline pitch that was called a strike. Not going to cause a big stir, but just let him know that you think it was a little bit up or away. Maybe you get the next one, and he did.
Lined into center field. Maben can't make the catch. He got a glove on it. Saunders will stop at second. Cameron Maben dove for it. Looked like he got a glove on him, but couldn't make the catch. Russell Martin with a base hit.
Well, this is exactly the approach I was just talking about. Russell Martin going to right center, staying on that ball just long enough. He didn't hit it cleanly. Cameron got a little bit of a late jump on it. And as he came in, it looked like he was going to make the catch and caught it in the webbing of his glove, but his glove was a little awkward as it hit the ground. The ball flips out. But that's Russell Martin in a nutshell. Now, we did not see that early in the season when he was struggling. That same pitch, he may have rolled over weak contact to the left side or swung and missed.
So that'll bring Troy Tulowitzki to the plate. Tulowitzki's had a great homestand. He has driven in 12 runs in the 7 games he has played here on this homestand. Tulowitzki drove in a run in the 7th and drove in the tying and winning run in the 8th. There's a slow breaking ball for his strike. Tulowitzki with 3 home runs during this homestand. He's 12 for 29. That's a .414 average. He's behind 0-2. Had a good rip at that pitch. Since Troy Tulowitzki's come off the disabled list, everything has fallen in place for him offensively.
Well, when they came over in that trade deadline, they certainly got the defensive shortstop they thought, but look at these numbers. Now the Blue Jays are starting to see the offensive Troy Tulowitzki that they thought they were getting last year. And this is what we saw when he was in Colorado. He was one of the best offensive shortstops in the game, and now he is finally starting to show it.
He ranks first in the American League in all of those offensive categories among shortstops since his return. Tulowitzki asked for time. He wasn't quite set as Pelfrey began to move into the set position. They had a pickoff play on at first base, and Cabrera bumped into Martin at first. He was trying to sneak in behind Russell, but Russell was all over that play, got back to the base before Cabrera got there.
Miguel Cabrera has an awful lot of fun playing this game, and that man right there, James McCann, he has got such a great arm. When you're a catcher with a good arm, you want to show it off. You got to be careful on the base pass for those back picks.
Tulowitzki drives it down the left field line. It is a foul ball. Well, what a good 2-strike swing from Tulowitzki.
It's a big difference in Troy, too. Earlier in the season, not only was he pulling off the baseball, but he was working underneath the baseball. Look at how he stays on that ball and at contact. He's out front of this pitch, but the head is right down at contact. And you see that ball's not hooking a whole lot. It stays fairly true, and that tells me right there that his hands are staying inside the baseball well, and he's working through the ball much better than earlier in the year.
He just missed his 16th home run. Way outside. What an at-bat Tulowitzki's putting up.
That's exactly the reason why hitters want to keep the bat in the hitting zone a long time. You hear that all the time from hitting coaches. Get that bat on plane at the back of your swing as you begin and keep it going through as long as you can towards the pitcher, so that if you're fooled in an off-speed pitch like Troy was right there, it's still there and you can still hit the baseball fairly hard.
Fly ball to right. Saunders going back to second to tag. Martin doing the same at first. Avila's throw a good one right to the cutoff man Kinsley. Saunders moves over to third. Martin stays put at first. Tulowitzki with the fly ball out to right.
It's good at bat by Troy Tulowitzki. Battled Pelfrey all along there and still able to hit that ball deep enough to the right side of the field for Michael Saunders to advance the 90 feet, and now he is there with less than 2 outs for Smoke.
Justin Smoke is averaged down to 229. He has had just 3 hits in 23 at bats on his home stand. Aggressive in that first pitch, and he fouls it into the seats. The Blue Jays bounced into a double play in the first. Edwin Encarnacion grounded out to a 4-6-3 double play.
That's where Michael Saunders is going to have to be careful at that third base bag. With a left-handed hitter, you think there's all kinds of room at third, but Castellanos is not playing too far off that bag. We saw McCann already think about a back pick at first base. Saunders needs to be heads up at third.
Outside. Ball and a strike to the Blue Jays first baseman Justin Smoke. No score, bottom of the second inning. Each team with a pair of hits.
Pelfrey's a ground ball pitcher. He's able to get them. This is a perfect candidate right here with Justin Smoke at the plate for a ground ball double play to get out of the inning. Justin's looking for something he can elevate.
Just foul outside of first.
Pelfrey's pitches are going down. The two-seam fastball has downward movement. The changeup we've seen has downward movement. When those pitches are going down in the zone, the hitter's likely to hit the top of the baseball into the ground, and that's where he gets his ground balls. As a hitter, you have to combat that by trying to work underneath the baseball almost. Justin's just looking to drive something in the air to the outfield, not to hit out of the park, just to hit it deep enough to get Saunders home.
Smoke was 0 for 5 in the game last night with 3 strikeouts. He's got a chance to give the Blue Jays an early lead here. 1-2 to Smoke. He is called out on an inside pitch. Joe West rings him up. That's the first strikeout for Pelfrey.
Well, it's an excellent pitch by Pelfrey. You see the two-seam fastball. Starts it inside off the plate, and that ball comes back just enough. Joe West thought it caught the inside corner, but as a left-handed hitter, you freeze up as that ball comes back.
Now there are 2 outs. Kevin Pillar steps in the batter's box. Pillar had a couple of hits late in the game. Last night he finished up 2 for 4.
That little slider from Pelfrey, first pitch just off the corner. So creative.
That is a very different twist to Kevin Pillar's name, the Fresh Prince of Pillar. Way outside, 2-0. Kevin was called out trying to score on a bunt off the bat of Ezequiel Carrera in last night's game. He was called out. The Blue Jays appealed the call at home plate, and the call on the field was upheld. The bang bang play. Verlander made a heck of a play to make an accurate throw to the catcher. Two and 0.
John Gibbons talked about that play after the game last night. He said he'd rather see Ezequiel swing the bat right there with runners on second and third in the infield back. They're giving you the one run, and you'd like to see him maybe try to put one through the hole to score two. And I still like the play by Ezequiel. I like the bunt. I thought Justin Verlander did everything perfectly to field it and get that throw to McCann to tag Pillar at the plate. And even then, it was under review, is very close. But it's a guaranteed run to tie the ball game with Ezequiel speed. You hand it over to Josh, batting second.
3-1 now as Pelfrey misses with that pitch down and in. 2 outs. Saunders started it off with a walk. He drew that walk to begin the inning. He's now at third base. Martin singled to center. That load to base, second walk of the inning, ball 4 to Pillar. And that'll bring Darwin Barney to the plate, and Barney's been swinging the bat very well. He's got a 6-game hit streak, batting .360 over those 6 games. I spoke to Darwin today about his hitting now compared to when he was a regular player with the Cubs. He said, now I understand it's about getting a good pitch to hit. It's about contributing to a team philosophy offensively. When I was in Chicago, we had a bad team, and you were always thinking about your own numbers. Little things translate very well when you're on a good team. 2 outs, the bases are loaded. Barney goes after that first pitch.
And it makes so much sense when you get everybody pulling that rope in the same direction, and Darwin Barney's a perfect example of this. He's not concerned with his personal numbers. He's trying to do something good each and every night. Last night it was Verlander. I remember that conversation I had with him when he was facing Clayton Kershaw when the Dodgers were here. He said, you're not going to get 2 or 3 hits off Clayton Kershaw, so don't even bother doing it. Don't even bother trying, but try to get 1 hit and make it count, and he's been very good at that.
Takes a tough pitch. Another thing he said that adds to his success as a hitter is being around all these great hitters, listening to Donaldson and Encarnacion and Tulowitzki and Bautista, what they're thinking about, what they want to get at the plate, instead of worrying about where your hands are, where your feet are. What's this guy going to give me that I can hit hard?
The approach. Have a plan.
Oh, he had a good cut at that pitch up in the zone.
Around the batting cage today, Josh Donaldson was talking to Justin Smoke. Justin going through a bit of a rough spell right now after his round, and Ezequiel Carrera was about 4 or 5 feet away, and you could just see him take 1 step and then another step, and he's listening to Josh. And Josh, he can talk hitting all day long, and that's what happens throughout a team. And we don't see the half of it. We don't know what happens in that clubhouse behind closed doors. Nothing better than sitting around and talking shop after a ball game, and I have a feeling that a lot of that goes on in that Blue Jays clubhouse.
1-2. Barney gets a piece of that breaking ball and stays alive. Darwin Barney came up in 2011, played every day, finished 7th in the National League Rookie of the Year voting, but the Cubs lost 91 games. The next year in 2012, he won a Gold Glove, but the Cubs lost 101 games. It's tough to think about sacrificing your at bat for the betterment of the team when you're losing 100 games.
Nowhere to go.
No score in the game. We're in the bottom of the second. Blue Jays trying to take advantage of this bases loaded situation. 2 walks and a single. Up the middle, there's Pelfrey. And that'll end the inning. He bounces out to the pitcher. The Blue Jays leave the bases loaded. We'll go to the 3rd. No score.
Anniversary presented by Rogers will be this Sunday at 12:45 Eastern Time, celebrating some of the franchise's great moments over the last 40 seasons. We will have it for you as a special edition of Blue Jays Central gets underway from the Rogers Center. A lot of success to celebrate.
A lot of great memories, Arash, over the 40 years, and there's no doubt about it. Of course, the culmination of a lot of early success, 92-93 World Series championship, back-to-back. Number 9 hitter Jose Iglesias takes a pitch outside. J-Happ has tightened up that cutter, slider, the breaking ball, and it got a little loopy in June. He just wasn't really driving it through the zone. There's another one. This one's hooked into the seats.
And that one right there is about the best description when Russell's setting up inside. Jay's mindset when he throws his slider is cutter. He wants it to be smaller. He does not want to be sweepy and big. So he's really trying to shorten that up and bury it in on the right-handed hitters. Now he's going to go away.
Tried to catch the outside corner with that same pitch. Jay, as we mentioned, went 4-1 in June. His ERA was 5.28. He got a lot of run support, but at the same time, he stayed out there long enough to record the wins. He made 5 starts, pitched 29 innings over the course of those 5 starts. First time out in July, he went 5 innings against Cleveland. Didn't walk a batter and struck out 11. That ball's a fair ball. That's going to go into the corner down the left field line. Iglesias is headed for second. He makes a turn around second, and he'll stay there.
Save during the plumbing, cooling, and electrical expert sale. Only at Home Hardware and Building Center locations. Homeowners helping homeowners with expert advice.
Well, for the second consecutive inning, the Tigers have the leadoff man aboard. Iglesias with a leadoff double. That'll turn the lineup over back to Ian Kinsler. Kinsler struck out on a high fastball his first time up.
Jay went through a stretch in June that you talked about there. He just found himself getting very erratic, very inconsistent with his delivery. That front side was pulling off and he was coming around the baseball. That sinker that he was throwing, the two-seamer at times, was cutting, and he just really came out of his delivery. So he's really worked on getting back in line with his catcher. And that's a perfect example right there. When you can stay closed with that front side and quiet, it allows the arm to get up and reach out. The best pitch, when you can go glove side like that for a lefty into a righty and hit that inside corner, that's when you know that you're in tune with your delivery. You have to be good to be able to get it in there.
He uses that backdoor breaking ball to get ahead of Kinsler 1-2.
And the good thing about that fastball into the righty is every other pitch works off of that. If you can get that extension and that release point, now the slider's going to be good. Now the curveball's going to be good, the changeup, and even when you want to backdoor that slider. So everything works off of that. When he's hammering that fastball into righties and hitting it, that's when he's on.
Kinsler got a piece of it and found it straight back to the screen. Kinsler last night had an infield single. He was officially 1 for 3. He was hit by a pitch in the 5th. He strikes out again. They missed their spot. They were trying to go inside, but Kinsler strikes out on that fastball. It's 6 strikeouts perhaps so far.
Sometimes when you try to come in and you're trying to make that real good pitch, you try so hard that you pull off with that front side, and that's what happened there to Jay, and he just left it a little bit arm side. It still worked. It's only 92 miles per hour, but we continue to see swings and misses, and that's what tells me that that thing looks about 96, 97 to the hitters.
Cameron Maybin goes after that first pitch breaking ball. You know, this season there are a lot of things that have contributed to Jay's success, but one of the things is the fact that he understands he's going to miss his spots from time to time. In years past, he would fret over that and carry it into the next bat. Oh, I missed my spot. Well, you got the strikeout. Now he understands the results are what's important, not necessarily how you got there.
And I think Russell's a big part of that. Russell is an aggressive game caller. He is coming at you. He's going to utilize the fastball. We saw it last night with Hutchison mixing in the other pitches. But Jay now is in that mode where it's not overthinking on the mound. He is trusting his catcher. You put the sign down and I'll try to hit the glove.
Jams it up, and they got a shot at Iglesias. A base running mistake. He runs himself out of scoring position. Happ reacted very positively when he looked at third, and to his surprise, Iglesias was on his way to third.
It's a heads-up play by Happ as a base runner. You have to make sure this ball gets past the pitcher, and this was just a chopper right back to Jay to his right. That's a base running blunder. You've got to make sure it gets past him before you go, especially taking yourself out of scoring position.
Especially where you are in the lineup. Now you got Miguel Cabrera at the plate. If Iglesias stays put, he's in scoring position for Cabrera. You just got to know where you are on the bases, and you've heard it as a young player. Pre-pitch preparation. Think about the situation.
You have to anticipate, and those are the plays right there that'll drive a manager nuts. As you know, Buck, they just saw Brad Ausmus in that dugout. What do? There's nothing you're going to say to the player. You're not going to go down the dugout and scream at him. He knows what he did wrong, but that's just got to eat at a guy like Brad, who is pretty fundamentally sound as a player.
You know what used to happen? Teams used to have 5 and 6 extra men on the bench. Take the guy out of the game. Let him think about it for the next 6 innings.
Didn't Billy Martin take Reggie Jackson out of a game?
Bobby Cox took Andrew Jones out of the game. Whitey Herzog took Gary Templeton out of the game. It's happened for years, but now, because you have to carry 8 relievers, you have 3-man benches, and you can't take your regulars out. There goes Maybin, fouled straight back. He got another great jump, and Cabrera fouled them all off.
Those are things, though, that you have to learn in rookie ball and A-ball down in the minor leagues, and they're taught. But for some reason, players get up here to the major league level, and we continue to see those mistakes. It's no different than a ground ball to short and a runner trying to go second to third. You would get mad at your Pee Wee players for doing that at 12 years old. It still happens in the big leagues.
1 and 2, 2 outs. Jay Happ trying to get out of this inning after the leadoff double. There's a base hit to left field. Maybin will stop at second. That's a run right there. Iglesias stays put at second. Cabrera picks up the RBI. Now Jay's got a chance to get out of this inning.
Nobody feels worse than Jose Iglesias right now. He's kicking himself. But you called it, Buck. You make a base running mistake with that part of the batting order coming up, you're bound to pay. And sure enough, who knows what would have happened, but still not a good time to make a mistake with that guy coming to the plate.
So Cabrera at first, Maybin at second. Victor Martinez grounded out into a fielder's choice to end the first. He goes after the first pitch, and he was looking for that first pitch high fastball.
The runner on second base, the catcher does not want to give his location too early. See Russell, he's faking that he's going out, but then very late he jumps back in, and that's so that that runner on second base cannot relay the location to the hitter. Nice job by the veteran catcher.
Victor Martinez, the hitter, in his 14th season in the big leagues. Martinez out in front on both of those pitches, but Happ has an 0-2 count. This is the 5th year for Martinez with the Tigers. He had a very serious knee injury, missed the entire 2012 season, and at the time it was thought to be career-ending. But he's worked hard and he's come back with some terrific seasons since. Popped up and playable. Barney, the second baseman, calls for it, and Happ strands a pair. Still a scoreless game. Jay Happ pitches out of it.
Rogers Center. Once the Tigers leave town, the Mariners, Padres, and Orioles are in for a 9-game homestand. BlueJays.com for tickets to watch any game against Seattle, San Diego, or Baltimore. Buck?
Great home schedule throughout the entire month of July, so make sure you get your tickets and don't be shut out. There have been some terrific crowds lately here at Rogers Center. Last night, 46,283 for the first game of this 4-game series against the Tigers. Ezequiel Carrera takes a first pitch ball. He showed bunt. Castellanos, the third baseman, still well in front of the baseline at third. Joe West called Carrera for the swing. Yeah, showing bunt again, and it's a ball. 3 balls and no strikes now.
Nick Castellanos is playing in. Miguel Cabrera is playing back, but we know that Ezekiel likes to take that bunt with him. We'll see if Miguel moves with the pitch.
Two balls and 2 strikes now to Carrera. Carrera grounded out to shortstop his first time up. That high fastball gets the strikeout. Second strikeout of the ball game for Mike Pelfrey. Josh Donaldson singled his first time up at a single to right. It was his 100th hit of the season. He became the 29th Blue Jay to record 100 hits before the All-Star break. He's had a great first half to his season. In June, Donaldson hit .368. In 7 games in July, .444. The Tigers, some of their coaching staff and some of their on-field personnel were talking about watching Donaldson take batting practice and how disciplined and regimented he is during his batting practice. Wally Joyner, the hitting coach, and Rich Doobie, the pitching coach, on the right. But they were really watching how Donaldson is so disciplined. He doesn't swing at bad pitches in batting practice.
He's very animated. He doesn't look a lot different in batting practice than he does right here.
Two and two.
See him when he steps out right now. He's fixing, adjusting all of his things. Watch when he grabs his bat right now. When he steps into the batter's box, fixing that helmet, it's all about feeling good and getting that right feel. He's going to find his footwork right there, get his foothold in the back of the batter's box as he gets his bat here. Watch him wiggle his elbows right here. It's all about that rhythm and feel and timing, and now he's going to get that wiggle back and forth, get on that back leg as he initiates his swing.
That's a great point. Josh Donaldson is a very good golfer, and golfers have a similar routine as they get set up to hit a shot. And Donaldson does a lot of things to get his balance, to feel his weight, to get his hands in a good position, all the while locked in on the pitcher.
Just that little bounce. We've seen him oftentimes as he's in the batter's box. He'll stop and call time for the umpire and step out because he says, I can only be so locked in and focused for so long. Usually about 1,001, 1,002, 1,003 camp. If it goes longer than that, you got to stop and reboot. Very, very methodical in every one of his moves right here, but you can really see that rhythm and the feel that he's got in his body.
Full count. Castellanos dives to his feet quickly and makes the throw. Donaldson retired on a nice defensive play by Nick Castellanos, the third baseman.
Oh, we talked about Nick Castellanos last night, improving every day as a third baseman. It's a good jump on this ball, fully extended with that dive, and the big thing is right here to hang on to that baseball. He does, but then he gets to his feet very quickly with a good accurate throw, showing some great athleticism there at the hot corner.
2 up, 2 down for Pelfrey here in the third. Look out. That was a breaking ball, some sort of cutter or slider that spun out of the hand of Pelfrey.
Well, you see, there's no reaction from the Blue Jays dugout because they fully understand what happened there. Pelfrey's just trying to really grip this breaking ball. And when you try that hard with a guy like Edwin at the plate, you're trying to throw your best curveball you've ever thrown. And sometimes that's the worst thing you can do. Just flipped right out of his hand.
Ball on his strike. Encarnacion grounded into a double play to end the first. Edwin reminding himself to stay on that ball a little bit, and they have pitched him away tough. And slider off the plate. 2 balls and 2 strikes. Went right back to that same pitch.
Saw Edwin earlier in the season really struggle with the off-speed away and really the pitches on the outer part of the plate, and he slowly made that adjustment. Rick Jacoby said sometimes he'll talk about scooching just a little bit closer to the plate so you can cover that outer half, and other times though hitters think they might be doing that. You might say I'm moving closer, but you're really not, as those feet kind of go back to that comfort zone.
It's really interesting how hitters get to a certain depth off the plate, and that's their comfort zone. You ask them to move up, and it feels as if the plate were on a stand, like it jams you, like it comes out of the ground about belt high, and you're standing too close to it.
Need that freedom with the hands.
3-2 pitch. He got it inside.
Big thing too for Edwin, Jacoby talked about his stride foot, is that he starts a little bit open with his stance. Now if you're going to stride and stay open, that's not a good thing for covering the outer part of the plate. But now when you stride and you can almost square up so your toes are aligned, that leaves you lined up a little bit more to have that outside plate coverage, and Edwin's been better at that. So that stride foot come even.
Pelfrey walks Encarnacion. 2-out walk. Let's check in with Jamie Campbell. Well, the Blue Jays have seen Napoli do damage against them. The Yankees going through a tough stretch right now. Didi Gregorius is about the only guy that's really doing much for the Yankees. Chad Green starting for New York. He's been touched up for 6 earned runs. Bouncing Mal Cabrera will step on the bag to retire Michael Saunders. Blue Jays get a 2-out walk and strand a base runner. Here comes the Ultimate Cleanup Crew, brought to you by Home Hardware's exclusive line of the ultimate hard-hitting and tough-on-grime cleaning products.
Congratulations to Milos Raonic, becoming the first Canadian to reach a Grand Slam final in men's singles. You can watch Milos, Federer, Novak, and the top tennis stars at Rogers Cup beginning July 25th on Sportsnet and Sportsnet Now. Buck?
Raonic beat Roger Federer in that semifinal. What a terrific match and a great run he has had at Wimbledon. Congratulations to Milos Raonic. Jay Happ throws a first pitch changeup to Nick Castellanos. Castellanos singled to lead off the second. Went to second base on a pass ball, but then Jay Happ struck out the next three batters in order. Castellanos with that single has bumped his average up to 309.
Happ being very careful with Castellanos, swinging a very hot bat for the Tigers. He hit a 1-1 slider back in the second inning, drilling it into left field. Tried a couple of changeups in this at bat, and he's gone away. He's going to come back inside.
There's that high fastball. The Tiger hitters know they're going to get a high fastball, and he might have swung at a borderline pitch right there. Castellanos has homered in 3 straight games for the first time in his career. Well, he's a young player that's getting better and better with each season. He came into this season with 1,100 major league at bats. And when you close in on about 1,500 at bats, that's when people feel like you have established yourself. And Jay Happ comes all the way back to get another strikeout.
The checkered flag event is back, celebrating over 50 years of racing heritage in every Honda. Now is a great time to get into the all-new Civic.
One down for Justin Upton. Upton struck out his first time up. He was called out on a fastball. Happ with 7 strikeouts with 1 out here in the 4th. He had 11 strikeouts in his last start without issuing a walk. He's not walked anyone here tonight.
Tonight he's really used the fastball to get those strikeouts too, and that's why I think as those hitters, we just haven't seen anybody square up that fastball.
Hey, you know what? When you throw enough fastballs up in the zone, the umpire is going to see so many of them every now and then. He's going to give you a good pitch up there.
And we'll see if he's not set up for that slider down. Change up.
Boy, Happ is dealing. 8 strikeouts now.
Russell setting up. Look at the grip on the baseball right there. It's coming off all of those fingers. Good arm speed. It looks like a fastball. And as a hitter, not only do you have to honor the 92, you have to honor what it looks like, which I think hitters are thinking about 97 tonight. Turns that ball over, down and away. Good movement, good arm speed, good deception. And that again is all about being in sync with your delivery. Jay went through a little rut, couple starts there. He wasn't right. It happens to everyone. But what was great to see is he rectified the problem rather quickly. It didn't take him a month to do it. 1 or 2 starts he wasn't right. He kept working on it in his side sessions with Pete Walker and Dane Johnson down in the bullpen. Staying close, getting back on top of that baseball.
So Martin's going to wonder what was wrong with that pitch. Pretty good changeup, and they didn't get to call. Happ pitched against the Tigers in Detroit on the 6th of June. And they jumped on him for 6 runs on 6 hits in 5 innings. There's a high fly ball into center field. Pilar waiting and waiting and makes the catch. 3 up, 3 down with a couple of strikeouts. We'll go to the bottom of the 4th. Happ's battery mate Russell Martin will lead things off. Then Troy Tulowitzki and Justin Smoke. It's a scoreless game.
Season spectacle live from San Diego. The brightest and the best will be there. Home Run Derby and the All-Star Game July 11th and 12th on Sportsnet.
There are now 4 Blue Jays going to the All-Star Game. Marco Estrada will go along with 3 position players. Josh Donaldson, Edwin Encarnacion, and now Michael Saunders. So 4 Blue Jays will represent the Jays at the Midsummer Classic in San Diego. Congratulations to all 4. Russell Martin hits the grounder to second. Kinsler has it. 1 down. The Tiger starters have done a very good job of keeping the ball in the ballpark recently. With Verlander's start last night, they have now thrown 7 consecutive games without allowing a home run. Excuse me, 9 consecutive games without allowing a home run. Starters have done a real good job of keeping the ball in the ballpark. That's another breaking ball, and all the fans are upset. And the Blue Jay hitters know they can see the spin on that breaking ball. It just didn't break.
Well, you'd think the second time through the batting order would be beneficial for a lot of these Blue Jays hitters against Pelfrey. Encarnacion and Tulowitzki are really the only 2 that have had significant at-bats. Edwin 13 and Tulo 20 coming into tonight, and you're getting a pitcher that you have not seen a whole lot of. May take a couple times through the order to get a good look at him and figure out what he's trying to do to you and what that ball is doing.
Base hit for Tulowitzki. A 1-out single. Just the 3rd Jays hit of the night. Justin Smoke called out on an inside fastball his last time up. 0 for 1. He's hit a couple of home runs on this 8-game homestand. 2 homers, 3 RBIs for the big first baseman. Off-speed pitch, hooked foul.
See the grip now. That's more of a change-up grip right there by Pelfrey. Now he's just started using that pitch in his last start. A very good start at Tampa Bay. He went 6 1/3 innings, just 1 run. He did not factor in the decision, but that's a pitch he just broke out. He's been fastball, curveball, slider split, but he broke out the changeup, and this is what happens when you're scuffling a little bit and you're trying to pull something out. You practice in your side session. He said, I'm going to take this into the game. And he had a lot of success with it, and we're seeing it here tonight.
You would think Pelfrey would be open for suggestions given the fact the opponents have hit .332 against him coming into this game. But he's got pretty good stuff. He's a big guy, about 6'5", he throws downhill, he's got a good sink, and he hasn't been able to really develop his second and third pitches.
There's that changeup grip right there.
High and deep to right. Avila's back at the track, at the wall. He makes the catch. Smoke just out in front of it. Took Avila's right to the base of the wall in right field. But it stayed in the ballpark. Just enough off that pitch to have Smoke out on that front foot.
And that's the changeup that Pelfrey's been working, and it's just down in the zone enough, and Justin is just out front enough. You see that grip, but just getting it a little bit towards the end of the bat. He hit it very high, just not quite as far, and Avila's had room just in front of that right field fence. Edwin saying, you just missed it. Smokey said, yep, just missed it.
2 outs for Kevin Pillar. Pillar walked in the second inning, one of 2 walks Pelfrey issued in that second inning. The Blue Jays would eventually leave the bases loaded. A lot of reaches for that outside pitch toward the end of the bat.
Sounded like it broke, but Kevin's checking it. Maybe it didn't.
Pillar lifts it to left field. Upton is there, and that'll end the inning. Blue Jays leave another base runner on. They've stranded 5 through 4 innings. No scores. We head to the 5th. Now time for a Blue Jays Central update. Here's Jamie Campbell and Greg Zahn from the Samsung broadcast studio.
big comfy green seats of the TD Comfort Zone. They're special guests of TD. While over in the Jays Community Clubhouse, we welcome fans from Pathways to Education. Earlier today, a number of the Blue Jays were at the Holland Bloorview Kids Hospital. There's Jason Grilly, Kevin Pillar. You see Michael Saunders and Justin Smoke. I spoke with Smoke about it. He said there was actually a kid there who was a big Jays fan, 12, 13 years old. He said he wanted to trade me for Miguel Cabrera. The kid told him, hey, you hit home runs, you're decent defensively, but you need to cut down on the strikeouts.
That is awesome, and good for those Blue Jay players and their wives who went along with them to bring some joy to those children. And you know, Joe, I don't know that the younger players really appreciate the impact they have when they see kids like that. That it brightens their day, and the memories will last for a long time.
Yeah, it's a great day for those players to help out, but it's an especially great day for those kids in that hospital.
Some pop-up. Martin in foul ground makes the catch. Michael Relis is read time. Let's check in with Jamie Campbell. David Ortiz is having a phenomenal season. And Chris Archer might want to pitch around him a time or two. How about Ortiz? What he has done offensively is quite remarkable, and this is his final season. Came into this game batting .337, second in the American League in batting average. He now has 21 home runs for the season. Iglesias pops it into right field. 2 down.
This Blue Jays Rogers 4K broadcast is powered by the Samsung 4K SUHD TV.
Two outs. We're in the top of the 5th inning of this scoreless ball game. Jay Happ and Mike Pelfrey walked in a scoreless tie. Ian Kinsler has gone down swinging twice. Both pitchers doing a very good job. Blue Jays have stranded 5. The Tigers have left 4. Kinsler behind quickly, 0-2. To finish up, one more thought on David Ortiz. Came into this schedule tonight with 69 RBI, second to Edwin Encarnacion in the American League.
Do you still retire if you win the Triple Crown?
I tell you what, you could probably negotiate a pretty good contract if you wanted to come back. He has really done a terrific job, and you know, oftentimes people get distracted thinking about, well, you know, it's my final season, but he has said all along, I want to go to the World Series. And right now he's acting as a one-man wrecking crew. He leads the league with 34 doubles. He's got 5 more doubles than Manny Machado, who's half his age. Kinsler off speed, got him to foul it off. Another fly ball to right. Carrera's not going to get this. It bounces in front of him. Kinsler with a bloop single with 2 outs.
Well, Kinsler's always going to give you a good at-bat. Very tough out. There's a changeup again from Jay Happ. He gets him out front. That's exactly what you want to do with that changeup. Looked like Ezekiel just got a bit of a late jump on it, and then rather than trying to create any problems with 2 outs, just play it on the hop and allow Jay to get to the next batter.
Cameron Maben has a single to right, and he hit a fielder's choice back to the pitcher's mound. was after the first pitch. Happ beat him with that high fastball. Maybin hit the comebacker to Jay Happ with Iglesias at second, and Happ fielded. Iglesias, for some reason, broke to third, and Happ threw it to Donaldson. They were able to tag out the Tiger shortstop. Another 0-2 count for Jay Happ. That's a fair ball. Donaldson, bare hands, what a play! That ball hit the base. He reacts with his bare hand, and it plants and fires a seed across the diamond. Josh Donaldson doing it all. That ball skipped off the top of third base. Watch it right here. The ball is going to hit the bag. Donaldson moves over to make a play. It kicks up, and look at his reaction. Grabs it with a bare hand, plants that right foot, and fires it across the diamond, and Jay Happ loves the defense. We move to the bottom of the fifth. 9-1-2 for the Blue Jays. Darwin Barney hits it past Castellanos. He's making the turn around first. He's headed for second. He'll get there with a stand-up leadoff double. 7th double of the season for Barney.
Oh, see if Darwin Barney cannot ignite this lineup. He tucks this ball just past the diving Castellanos into left field, and now it's that third time through the batting order. See if these Blue Jays hitters cannot get to Pelfrey third time through.
Baseball is truly a game of momentum, man. The Blue Jays got a big spark of adrenaline on that Josh Donaldson play to end the inning. That looked like it was going to be a double. Donaldson turns it into a 5-3 inning-ending putout. And now Barney leads it off with a double.
It's amazing what a great defensive play can do to a dugout, especially the last out of an inning. They get in that dugout, it's high fives all around. Huge momentum, a lot of excitement, a lot of energy, and let's see if maybe the Blue Jays can't turn that into a run here.
Quick throw to second. Barney was back safely. Carrera had a big hit in the 8th inning. He literally knocked Justin Wilson right off the mound. A hot shot right over the mound and knocked the pitcher down.
Castellanos and Cabrera at first, both expecting the bunt.
There's a base hit to center. Barney's being stopped at third. Maybin comes up throwing. First and third, nobody out for Josh Donaldson.
Well, so much for expecting the bunt in at the corners, but Ezekiel is swinging away, and he drills this ball right back through the box. He hit it so hard. Cameron Maben gets to it in a hurry, and Luis Rivera is going to wisely hold up Barney at third base with the big hitters coming up with nobody down.
Josh Donaldson is 1 for 2. He was robbed of a base hit. A nice play at third by Nick Castellanos in the third. He singled to right in the first. A scoreless game. Ground ball to third. Double play. The run comes in. Barney comes across to score. No RBI for Donaldson. But the Blue Jays take a 1-0 lead. Darwin Barney with the leadoff double comes in to score the first run of the ball game.
Well, the Blue Jays will take it. It cashes in the run. It's not what Josh Donaldson was looking for. He's not going to be happy, other than that the Blue Jays have the lead, but it's what happens when you're as good a hitter as Josh. You're looking to do some damage in that situation.
A curveball in there for his strike. Encarnacion walked his last time up. Pelfrey misses with another breaking ball. 1-1 count. A run in here in the fifth, first run of the ball game. Darwin Barney hit the leadoff double, comes in and scores on the double play.
Mike Pelfrey continuing to get ground balls off the bats of Blue Jays hitters, and that was a big double play for him right there. The Blue Jays do score, but it's one way to eliminate the bigger inning by retiring Donaldson.
2-2 now to Encarnacion. Ground ball to third. Castellanos across the diamond in time, but the Blue Jays take the lead. Darwin Barney scores the first run of the ball game after his leadoff double. 1-0 Jays.
In case you hadn't heard it, Michael Saunders is going to the All-Star game. He and the Blue Jays thank you for the support and votes with that hashtag #VoteCaptainCanada. Saunders said this afternoon, "I feel this is a redemption year for me." He said, "I feel the love, all the support and the votes from all Canadians. is humbling. Buck?
Great opportunity for Michael Saunders to play in his first All-Star game. And he wanted to thank the fans for all the efforts here, the ones that voted him in. One nothing ball game. Miguel Cabrera leading off for the Tigers. Cabrera's 1 for 2 so far in this game. Jay Happ's done a nice job of crowding the mind of Cabrera. He's thrown him a lot of different pitches in different areas of the strike zone.
Drew Hutchison did a good job last night too, and that's what you have to do against some of the greatest hitters in the game. Here he coming back inside.
He fights it off and shoots it down the line in right. Cabrera cuts it off, and Cabrera throws it back in quickly as Miguel Cabrera has a leadoff single.
The all-new Civic, the 2016 North American Car of the Year.
Miguel Cabrera has 2 singles, and the Blue Jays continue to pitch him tough. He's 2 for 3, but he hasn't done any damage. Happ's ability to throw that inside strike has really been a key to his success to this point in this game.
Especially when he comes hard inside, you get hitters conscious of the ball in. Now it's almost as though they're thinking and leaking a little bit with that front side, and opens up the whole outside. That's where Russell's sitting up now.
You can pitch inside all day long, and if you're not throwing strikes, it has no effect. But once you start throwing strikes inside, now the hitters have to honor that strike, and they make very slight adjustments and are conscious of trying to get to that pitch. And then the other side of the plate becomes wide open.
You'll often hear hitters having those conversations, and if they say he'll come inside but it's not for a strike, you don't have to worry about it. You disregard that pitch or that part of the zone, because if he can't hit the corner, then you know you can just look middle away, and that's where he'll have to live all night. But Jay has been able to do that, pounding that inside corner against this right-handed heavy Tigers lineup.
This is a perfect combination for the Blue Jays to turn 2. Martinez gets a piece of it. Victor hits the ball very hard and keep him on the ground and hit it hard. Neither one of them run well, so you could have a good shot at turning 2 and erasing that leadoff single.
Jay hasn't gotten a lot of ground ball outs tonight, but he has in some of his starts this year. His ground ball rate is up a little bit over the last few years, and he can use that 2-seam fastball to get one right now.
Well, what a good swing that was by Martinez to spoil a tough pitch. He was able to flare off that pitch on the corner.
Such a good pure hitter and a switch hitter from both sides, and he's a tireless worker in the batting cage. And the switch hitters, you know, they have to work both sides of the plate. It's like twice the work that other hitters put in.
Count remains 1-2.
Hitters will often go through a routine in the batting cage. They might start on the tee, work in different zones of the plate. Then they might do a little short screen or soft toss. Then they may have overhand toss. You do the entire routine one hand, and then Victor's got to do it the other hand, and that's what he does. Not all switch hitters will do that, but he does.
Yeah, it's really remarkable that these hitters work so hard to keep one swing together. Victor does it with 2. Full count. Pete Walker on the phone. Nobody's moving around just yet down in the Blue Jays bullpen. Now they're starting to get up. Look like Jesse Chavez popped up. That's going to be into the seats, out of play. It is Jesse Chavez who will be first up for the Blue Jays tonight. Jay Happ has thrown 94 pitches, but he has a 1-0 lead. Nobody out in the 6th. Popped up middle of the infield. Tulowitzki calls for it. The shortstop takes charge and makes the catch. Jay Happ in a 1-0 game, but it's been quite a different story over his last 5 starts.
Well, you look at the run support, runs scored for him, and it's not the case tonight against Pelfrey, but it's as a pitcher too. When you can get a lead and pitch with that lead, you can be much more aggressive, get after hitters. Jay's been doing that tonight in a tighter ball game, but for those run support right now tonight, they've only been able to squeak one out against Mike Pelfrey.
Nick Castellanos, the third baseman, 1 for 2. Jay Happ hasn't lost a decision since the Tigers beat him on June 6th. Castellanos with a half-hearted swing. Pitched him away again. He hasn't picked up either of those last 2 pitches, up and away.
I think Castellanos is questioning himself right now. He can't believe he chased that pitch either. Talked about his discipline earlier tonight, but expanding the zone there, and now Jay's got him right where he wants him. I got to believe Russell's coming back down with something now. Maybe that slider down and in.
Changeup missed away.
It's a dangerous pitch to come inside now in a 1-run ball game. Get into the 6th inning here. If you're going to make a mistake, you want to make it out over the plate and force him to use the big part of the ballpark if he's going to hurt you deep. If you're coming inside, you better make sure you get it in there. Going back with that changeup down and away again.
Another strikeout for Happ. He gets a dangerous Nick Castellanos. Second time tonight Castellanos has gone down swinging.
Good location. Russell setting up down there, but again, you can see Castellanos is just out front of that pitch. Pitch is on the plate, but he's just out front. Good arm speed again, providing that deception. Jay's really making that changeup look like a fastball to the hitter.
Justin Upton, the fielder, has been called out on strikes, and he struck out swinging. Ball on a strike. Upton's got power. 9 home runs. He hit his 9th last night off of Drew Hutchison. Well, that's a good pitch. He has stayed inside of these right-handed hitters most of the night.
Did a nice job with Castellanos staying away. Nick's more of a pull type hitter. He's going to do his damage up the middle into the pull side. Upton, a good strikeout candidate, come back in there.
2-2 now to Justin Upton. Outside, it's a full count with 2 outs. Blue Jays have a 1-0 lead. Justin Smoak is going to play behind Miguel Cabrera. Foul back. They got that pitch inside. Pitch number 7 off the plate inside and tied up Upton. Quite a battle going on here. This seems like it might be a good time for a changeup. He's been able to throw that changeup all around the strike zone tonight, even though it's a full count. You got a dangerous hitter that's starting to catch up to that fastball.
And just looking at the way Happ is pitching to Upton, you got to believe that his strength is out over the plate. They're probably hesitant to get back out there. Going in there again.
Everything inside. He's trying to keep Upton from extending those arms out over the plate. See where Russell goes this time. They've given him a steady diet of hard stuff inside.
It tells you clearly the game plan against Upton. That's what the scouting report shows, is that his damage is done when it's out over the plate. You don't normally see them go this many times inside. Now they're going to the changeup. See if you can't get them down and away.
They lost it upstairs. A 2-out walk. That's the first walk Happ has issued tonight, and that's going to be it. John Gibbons has made the call to the bullpen. Happ throws 109 pitches, goes 5 2/3, 9 strikeouts, elevating his pitch count. And John Gibbons said, you know what, I'm going to bring a fresh arm in here to face James McCann. Jay Happ. He's got a 1-0 lead with the 2 runners on base are his responsibility. He'll turn things over to Jesse Chavez when we come back. It's a first and second situation with 2 outs. It's a 1-0 ball game. Chavez making his 32nd appearance of the season.
Chavez worked in that Canada Day game, the 2-1 loss in 19 innings to the Indians. He pitched 3 innings, did not allow a hit, retiring all 9 batters that he faced.
Catcher James McCann 0 for 2 with a strikeout. Jesse Chavez inheriting 2 more base runners here. First pitch is off the plate outside. Chavez has allowed 11 of the previous 25 inherited base runners to score. Base hit to left. Saunders gets a good break. They're going to stop Cabrera at third. McCann with the base hit.
Another nice looking swing from James McCann. Tees off on that pitch. He hit it so hard to left field. Third base coach Dave Clark is forced to hold Miguel Cabrera at third base.
So the bases are loaded now. There are 2 outs. Michael Vilas, the right fielder, is 0 for 2. He goes after the first pitch. Tulowitzki bobbles, but they get the force at second. Jesse Chavez strands the 2 inherited base runners. Jay Happ still has a 1-0 lead, looking for his 12th win. Michael Saunders will start things off for the Blue Jays, followed by Russell Martin and Troy Tulowitzki. Blue Jays lead it 1-0.
Again with the #1 rated travel rewards card in Canada, the WestJet RBC World Elite MasterCard. Visit rbc.com/WestJet to apply.
WestJet flight deck crowded again tonight on a evening with the roof closed. Jay Happ with a 1-0 lead. Jesse Chavez inherited a couple of base runners. He strands the bases loaded as they get out of it. Michael Saunders, Russell Martin, and Troy Tulowitzki. Saunders shows bunt, pulls the bat back.
Saunders will do that on occasion. He may think about dropping a bunt against the shift. Now Nick Castellanos at third is playing a little bit more in and near the line.
The Tigers have not shown that dramatic shift with Michael Saunders like we've seen other teams. They're playing pretty much straight away. You can see Iglesias at short, Castellanos at third.
Not a bad idea for Michael too, to just show that bunt. That brings that third baseman back closer to his position, and then maybe you get a ball out over the plate that you punch by him and into left field.
high changeup. 3-1 now to the leadoff man here in the bottom of the 6th. Pelfrey got that pitch in a real good spot. He had to throw a fastball and had that sinking fastball down and away to Michael Saunders. The Blue Jays have a 1-0 lead. Tampa Bay and Boston tied at 4 at the end of 5, and the Angels up big over Baltimore. 8-2, top of the 6th. Jay Happ, another good start here tonight. His 18th start of the season is a good one, Joe.
Well, he put a bunch of zeros up again, very aggressive with the fastball, and I love that game plan for calling behind the plate. Russell Martin, he pounded that fastball in on this right-handed lineup, mixed in some changeups as well today along with those sliders.
There's a bullet into center field off the bat of Michael Saunders. A leadoff single here in the 6th.
Elevated fastball from Pelfrey. Michael does a nice job with a high pitch. You want to try to keep your hands above the baseball, and he does that, lining it right back up the middle.
The right-hander is Bobby Parnell. The lefty is Kyle Ryan. Pelfrey with 94 pitches. Strike 1 to Russell Martin. Way outside, a ball on the strike. The Blue Jays have won 6 in a row. That's the longest active win streak in the majors. Trying to move to 7 straight. They began play tonight 2 games back of the Baltimore Orioles. The Orioles leading the division. Blue Jays and Orioles tied with 49 wins. Ground ball. Iglesias quickly to Kinsler, back to first. Double play. See, 3rd double play the Blue Jays have bounced into tonight. Tigers have a very good infield and a very good pivot man at second in Ian Kinsler.
A good job by the Tigers infield again, but Mike Pelfrey continues to get Blue Jays hitters to beat the ball into the ground. He's been doing it all night. He got a big double play off the bat of Josh Donaldson last inning. It did cash in the Blue Jays' only run, but what Pelfrey did is he helped himself to avoid the big inning. Got Russell to bounce into one here to avoid any more trouble here in the 6th.
First pitch is way outside to Troy Tulowitzki. Right on the outside corner. Tulowitzki singled sharply into left field in the 4th inning. Lays off that breaking ball. Tulowitzki now has 13 hits in the 8 games he's played in on this homestand. His average at 242. It was under 200 when he went on the DL. Way outside.
He's had such a better knowledge of the strike zone, discipline, plate discipline. Earlier in the season, we were seeing him so often taking strikes, swinging at balls, and he just looked like he was almost being a guess hitter. And that's what happens when you're just not in sync as a hitter, not confident. But Troy clearly has changed. It looks like he's staying on the baseball much better and being much more selective.
Well, he had a good rip at that pitch. He had his hitter's count at 3-1 and jumped all over it and just fouled it straight back. Spoke waits on deck. Full count with 2 outs. Popped up near the bag at second is Iglesias, the shortstop. He makes the catch. The inning is over. Blue Jays get a leadoff single, ground into a double play. We'll go to the 7th. 1-0 game. The pitcher's dominant tonight.
With the MLB.com at-bat app. Customize at-bat to feature the Blue Jays and stay up to the moment with scores, news, live game video highlights, and much more. Download MLB.com at-bat, the #1 app for live baseball. These two may have other plans later tonight, Bud.
How about that, Arash? They are just married. They look like they just came from their wedding, sitting in the front row, taking in a Blue Jays game. Now, that young bride must truly be a Blue Jay fan. Or she's very understanding. Ball and a strike, 1 out. Nobody out. I'm sorry. It's the leadoff man, who's Iglesias. He hit a leadoff double in the 3rd and made a base running mistake. He had doubled, and then after a strikeout, Cameron Maben hit a comebacker to Jay Happ, and Iglesias broke for 3rd, and he was tagged out. Jesse Chavez came in to the ball game with 2 outs in the 6th. Ground ball to Barney. 1 down. Blue Jays bullpen is working. Left-hander is Brett Cecil. The right-hander is Bull Schultz. Schultz just called back up from AAA Buffalo. Pete Walker with instructions down to Dane Johnson in the bullpen. second baseman Ian Kinsler. Well, they have worked him upstairs all night long, and he has struck out twice on those high fastballs.
Jesse Chavez will be around 93, 94 with the fastball, curveball, cutter, and changeup. He'll throw both the 2 and 4-seamer. That was a 4-seamer right there, elevated in the zone. We'll see what Russell's thinking now. He's been back there for 6 innings. As a catcher, you have a pretty good feel for the lineup now as the bullpen comes in. You still want to pitch to your pitcher's strengths, but Russell has a good idea. He's going to try to elevate the fastball here.
He does, and gets the swing. Jesse Chavez has pitched a lot to Ian Kinsler. Kinsler, this is his 16th at bat. He has just 3 hits against Jesse. Of course, Jesse was a starter last year with the Oakland A's, and he had a few more innings working as a starter.
He'll throw that cutter inside the righties too, starting it at the batter. Now he's going away.
He left that breaking ball on the inside part of the plate. Another great crowd on hand tonight. 43,228 in attendance. Missed with that changeup. For the first 2 games of this 4-game series, over 89,000 people. Kinsler hits this in the air to right. Herrera is there, makes a nice running catch out on the warning track.
Save during the plumbing, cooling, and electrical expert sale. Only at Home Hardware and Building Center locations. Homeowners helping homeowners with expert advice.
Night has fallen on Toronto. The Blue Jays have a 1-0 lead, and these 2 teams hooking up with all these great hitters in the lineup. The last thing you would expect is a 1-0 game in the 7th. Center fielder Cameron Maybin had a base hit in his first at bat. Oh, Jesse made 2 great pitches there. Fastballs right at the knees. It's the ground ball to Tulowitzki. In time. Jesse Chavez retires the side in order in the 7th. It's still a 1-0 Blue Jays lead.
Tomorrow, Evan Longoria and the Rays head to Fenway to take on Mookie Betts and the Red Sox. That's tomorrow on Sportsnet at 4 Eastern Time.
Terrific game tonight. It's a 1-0 game here, and the people in the West End Plank, they're having a great time. New pitcher into the ball game is Kyle Ryan, the left-hander, taking over from Mike Pelfrey.
Ryan's done a nice job in his 29 games. That ERA at 2.43. Opponents hitting .286 against him, but in his last 5 outings, they've gone scoreless. He's struck out 7 batters in his last 5 1/3 innings.
Ryan is 6'5". With that, the switch hitting Smoke turns around the bat right-handed and rips it into center field. Not wasting any time. He takes the first pitch and drives it back into center.
Well, first pitch fastball, that's what Justin was looking for. Got it right out over the plate. He's not an overpowering left-hander. He'll be around 88, 89 miles per hour. Curveball, cutter, and changeup. We'll see a lot of that cutter.
Blue Jays now with 7 hits. The hits are even. 7 hits apiece. Ball outside to Kevin Pillar. Darwin Barney waits on deck. He has scored the only run in this game. Two and 0.
Kyle Ryan's been able to get some ground balls as well. That's what he's looking for off the bat of Pillar right here, but he's going to have to get the ball down.
There's a strike there. It's 2-1. Blue Jays seeing Ryan for the first time. Not a lot of information, but Smoke didn't need him.
Sometimes you see ball, hit ball, and that's what Justin was just going up looking for the first thing he saw.
Pillar's out in front of that pitch and hits it into the seats. Fan did a good job. He brought his glove and he got an opportunity and he got himself a souvenir.
You need your glove in that row. That was coming in hot.
It's another foul ball. The Blue Jays lost 2 of 3 games to the Tigers in Detroit at Comerica Park on the opener of this 4-game series last night in comeback fashion. They scored a run in the 7th, 2 in the 8th to win it 5-4. Blue Jays are 6-2 on this homestand. Pillar drives this one to the alley in right center. Naaman on the run. He's not going to get it. Smoke's being waved around third. Kinsler from the outfield. Here's the throw to the plate. Not in time. Pillar drives in the second Blue Jay run. A deep double to right center.
Cameron Maben just had to play this off that wall to short hop, and that little fumble may have cost him. He short hopped Kinsler even though he picked it cleanly, but that fumble by Maben may have been the difference. Big Justin Smoak lumbering around. He had to make sure first that this ball was going to get down in the gap. I love the call by Luis Rivera, an aggressive call with Justin Smoak running. You don't necessarily see this all the time. He goes ahead and sends him home. James McCann with a little deke tag at the plate, but Smoak beat the throw.
For Pilar, that's his 35th RBI. It's also his 21st double. Good job by Luis Rivera, keeping his eye on Smoak and Maben. Maben, the outfielder, had a little bobble, and once he saw that, he gave Smokey the go-ahead. Louis was way down the third base line, closer to home than he was to third, but he made the call. Come on, Dustin.
Louis made some great calls this year at third base. A very difficult job as a third base coach. You have to try to read the situation, know your runner, watch the outfielders. You got a lot going on, taking all that into account and making your decision.
All right, just spinning around to see if the Blue Jays may tip their hand. Barney's going to hit in this situation, in my mind, with a left-handed hitter on deck. Darwin's been swinging the bat very well.
Pitcher will do that inside move sometimes just to see if the hitter will flinch and maybe move his hands on the bat, indicating that he may be bunting. I don't know if Justin's talking about where the ball was hit or how hard he was running.
I don't think he's saying much right now. Barney lines to Cabrera, and Pilar does a heck of a job to get back ahead of that throw to second. If you don't freeze on a line drive and take one half step away from second, you're going to be doubled up.
Excellent base running. Watch Kevin Pilar when the ball is hit. He's in his secondary lead. He just flinched that way, and that almost costs him. It's almost as though you teach kids to freeze on the line. You actually want to go back on a line drive, because if it goes through, you're probably only advancing the 90 feet anyway.
Ezequiel Carrera. Carrera had a base hit in the fifth, his last time up. Carrera done a great job hitting against left-handed pitching this season. He's batting .435. He has 20 hits in 46 at-bats.
Does a nice job really staying in there against lefties, and that's what left-handed hitters. You don't see as many left-handed pitchers, so it almost seems as though that ball's coming from behind you, but you really have to stay in there with that front side to stay on the baseball.
Pitch is off the plate. It's 2 balls and no strikes. Now it's 3-0. Donaldson is on deck. There's just one out. 3-0 count to Carrera. He takes, and it's a strike. That's fouled into the seats. That'll run the count to full. Donaldson waiting on deck. Tigers have a right-handed pitcher ready. Bobby Parnell has been throwing, and you can see he's just standing by now.
The bullpen's been an issue for Brad Ausmus this year. Been a bit better lately.
There takes ball 4. So Brad Ausmus has come out of the Tiger dugout. He makes the call for the bullpen. Pereira walks, and now there are runners at first and second. Just one out. Donaldson is the batter. So Ausmus will go to the bullpen once again. The right-hander Bobby Parnell will come into the game, taking over for Kyle Ryan. Parnell will face Josh Donaldson in this 2-0 game when we come back. Donaldson, you see the Blue Jays balanced attack. RBIs since June 8th. Edwin Encarnacion has driven in 31. He's first in the American League. Donaldson right behind him second. And then Michael Saunders, Russell Martin, and Troy Tulowitzki in the top 11 since June 8th in RBIs in the American League.
Very deep lineup for the Blue Jays. Bobby Parnell's just pitched in 5 games. It's his second stint with the Tigers this season. He was just called up from AAA Toledo on Wednesday and pitched a scoreless inning against the Indians.
Donaldson takes a first pitch breaking ball for a strike. High pop-up on the infield. Shortstop Iglesias catches it. It's an infield fly. 2 outs. This copyrighted telecast is presented by authority of Rogers Blue Jays Baseball Partnership, and it may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form. And the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of Rogers Blue Jays Baseball Partnership. One of the great plays of the ball game, Josh Donaldson barehanding that ball off the bat of Cameron Maybin that skipped over the bag, and that ended the inning. Encarnacion goes after the first pitch and fouls it back. Two outs, a run in here in the 7th. Kevin Pillar with an RBI double drove home Justin Smoke all the way from first. Swing and a drive deep to center. Get up, ball, and way back. lights are out again as Encarnacion has reached 80 RBIs before the All-Star break.
How about those RBI leaders? Edwin got a fastball from Bobby Parnell, who's on the inner part of the plate and is just over the knees, about thigh high, and that was a no-doubter.
Michael Saunders drives it past Kinsler into right center.
Look at that home run by Edwin Encarnacion. Parnell had the pitch down a bit, but it was out over the plate, and that was right in that happy zone for Edwin. And that's one thing he's done so well, though, now since he's heated up. He's not trying to pull everything. He's using the middle of the field, and Brooke Jacoby has said if Edwin can even just think center, that's like opposite field for him. It keeps them on the baseball very well, and he drilled that up into the flight deck.
Junior Lake takes over as a pinch runner for Michael Saunders at first base. Russell Martin 1 for 3 this evening.
Well, these are the bullpen woes for the Tigers. It's been a struggle this year. They had been pitching a little bit better, thinking maybe they were turning the corner, but saw last night Shane Green came in and Justin Wilson gave up a few runs, leaving that Blue Jays win. And tonight, Bobby Parnell gives up the big blow to Edwin.
They will use Lake defensively late in the game, and after Saunders singled, they used him as a pinch runner, so he is into the ball game here in the 7th. Martin goes after that high pitch. The Blue Jays with another multiple run inning, 4 runs here in the 7th. 3-run homer by Edwin Encarnacion, home run number 23, RBIs 78, 79, and 80. Well, there's been so much balance in this attack recently. It has been Encarnacion Donaldson, but Saunders is right there. Russell Martin, Tulowitzki heating up on this homestand. And these ball players keep talking about Jose Bautista. Wait till we get Bautista back. John Gibbons told me today he thought that Jose was hitting off of a tee now. And that's another step in the right direction, of course.
This offense is reminding Blue Jays fans an awful lot of 2015. The depth of this lineup and the thunder in this lineup.
Base hit for Martin. Lake will stop at second. Joe, that's another thing we have seen with regularity recently. The hitters not so pull conscious. Guys getting base hits to right.
It's a great approach by Russell, especially with 2 strikes. It's a fastball out over the plate, not trying to do too much. Again, when they were struggling as a lineup, we saw a lot of rolling over, soft contact to the pull side. Watch him just not panic and let the ball travel, let it get deep. It's a very short swing. It's a great approach with 2 strikes. He finds the hole, and that's how you continue to, quote, pass the baton, which they talked about an awful lot last year, and you can do that when the lineup is this deep.
5-0 Blue Jays. Troy Tulowitzki. He's 1 for 3. Tulowitzki is the 9th Blue Jay to bat this inning. Good slider there as Parnell gets ahead 0-2. Tulowitzki is 2 for 3 against Bobby Parnell. Both of those hits have been home runs. Tulowitzki arguing that he foul tipped it. Joe West said no, that'll end the inning, but the Blue Jays score 4 runs. The big blow in the inning, a 3-run home run to dead center. Edwin Encarnacion with this 3-run homer has driven in 80 runs before the All-Star break. The 5th time the Blue Jays have had a player do that.
Jays on Sportsnet. Presented by Honda. The checkered flag event is back, celebrating over 50 years of racing heritage in every Honda.
New pitcher into the ball game is Bo Schultz, just called back up from AAA Buffalo. Schultz was sent to Buffalo after a terrific outing in that long Canada Day game. 4th appearance of the season. Schultz began the season rehabbing from a hip surgery. Carrera moves to left field. Junior Lake takes over in right. Michael Saunders was lifted in favor of the pinch runner, Junior Lake, so he is now in right.
Schultz will be up around 96 miles per hour. That fastball, slider, cutter, and changeup.
Barrett fouled that ball off his left leg. Blue Jays have stayed in his kitchen the whole series and all season long for that matter.
And now Schultz coming in there at 96. This is going to bring Brad Ausmus out of the Tigers dugout along with their trainer to have a look. Miguel fouled a ball off his foot earlier this week in Cleveland, and he stayed at home plate. They went and turned a potential double play. It looked like it grazed the left shin on the way down, but the umpires didn't see it. He stood at home plate in Cleveland, ended up arguing about it, and he got ejected from that ball game.
Says he's okay now, and we will continue. Yeah, that was a weird play. He stood right at home plate, thought he had fouled the ball off his leg, and they were able to turn a double play. He never left home plate. Line drive to left. Carrera is there, and he makes the catch. Carrera retires Cabrera. 1 down.
See the big shift now for Victor Martinez, as most teams do against him. Josh Donaldson, the third baseman, is the lone holdover on the left side. He's at the shortstop position. 3 infielders to the right side.
Breaking ball. Bo Schultz has to cover the bag. Marty gives him a good throw. Martinez is retired. Bo Schultz.
Nice job on both ends by Darwin Barney and by Bo Schultz. They know their runner, and that's the most important thing. Victor does not run very well at all. Darwin knows if I get there, I'll take my time, let my pitcher get there. This wasn't a timing play at first base. Schultz, go ahead, take your time and get to the bag.
Mentioned Bo Schultz pitched in that Canada Day game. He pitched 2 2/3 innings against the Cleveland Indians. He allowed 3 hits, did not allow a run, struck out 2. And then the Blue Jays would have to go to Ryan Goins and Darwin Barney. They lost that game 2-1 in 19 innings when Carlos Santana homered off of Darwin Barney.
And there was a concern that game that there may have been something wrong with Bo coming out of that ball game. Remember, he was covering first, but it turned out he was just cramping up. The concern, of course, was that he's coming off hip surgery in the offseason.
Sharply hit, no problem for Tulowitzki. Bo Schultz 3 up, 3 down. It took him just 7 pitches to retire the side in order. We'll go to the bottom of the 8th, 5-0 Blue Jays. Now time for a Blue Jays Central update. Here's Jamie Campbell and Greg Zahn from the Samsung Broadcast Studio.
Largest and only official team shop for your Toronto Blue Jays. They have the new 2016 authentic jerseys with the 40th season sleeve patch available now. You can get yours today at jaysshop.ca.
Well, there are very few people that come through the doors here at Rogers Center without some sort of Blue Jays memorabilia on, and they're Edwin's chicks. They say hit a homer so we can perch on your shoulder. Edwin Encarnacion certainly hit a homer tonight, a 3-run shot in the 7th, part of a 4-run 7th inning. This will be the former Blue Jay, Mark Lowe, making his 32nd appearance of the season, and he has had a tough start to his season.
It has been a struggle for Mark Lowe in a Detroit Tigers uniform in his 31 games. That ERA over 10. He last pitched at Cleveland, and inning gave up a couple of runs on Tuesday. Two-pitch pitcher, fastball slider. He'll be around 92, 93 with the fastball. We see a lot of sliders, about 50-50.
Justin Smoak singled and scored on the long double by Kevin Pillar. That was the second Blue Jay run of the night, and that started a 4-run inning. He'll go on and score 3 more on the Encarnacion home run. Buck Lowe was a terrific addition to the Blue Jays last season down the stretch. He was part of that 5-player addition to the Jays late July. He and LaTroy Hawkins down in the pen, Ben Revere, Troy Tulowitzki, and of course David Price.
Combined last year between Seattle and Detroit for an ERA under 2. He was excellent. He was rewarded with a nice free agent contract, 2 years and $11 million by the Tigers, but he just has not been able to repeat those numbers.
2-2 count on Justin Smoak. Now it's full. Blue Jays looking to win their 7th straight game and improve to 7-2 on this homestand. Smoak strikes out. 1 down. Drive the Game is brought to you by the all-new Civic, the 2016 North American Car of the Year.
Well, it was Edwin Encarnacion again. You see the catcher James McCann set up inside, and Parnell does not get the ball in. He left it on the plate just enough. Edwin does a nice job staying inside this ball, using the middle of the field, and this was a no-doubter right off the bat to put the Blue Jays up 5-0, where they comfortably sit here in the 8th.
Kevin Pillar had the RBI double his last time up. Pillar now with 35 RBI. Kevin Pillar with another hit. Fastball up. He jumped on it, pulled it into left field. Kevin has 9 hits on this homestand. Just 1 extra base hit. That was the RBI double his previous at bat. He is 2 for 3 tonight.
You know, he's enjoying a little chat with Miguel Cabrera over there. Tim Leeper told me today that Miguel is just a riot over there. He said, though, it looks like he's having a lot of fun. He's joking around, but he is one of the most adept people at baseball. He talks baseball over there. He's constantly talking about the rotations on the bunt defenses. They had some great conversations.
Darwin Varney ambushed that first pitch, got out in front and hooked it into the seats. Darwin scored the first run of the ball game. He had a leadoff double in the 5th. Came in to score on the double play off the bat of Josh Donaldson. That gave Jay Happ a 1-0 lead. No balls and 2 strikes. Darwin gets a piece of it. Bottom of the 8th inning. Blue Jays won last night's game 5-4. They have a 5-0 lead tonight. Oh, and really had to battle to get to that pitch, down and away. The Blue Jays will send Aaron Sanchez to the mound tomorrow afternoon. Sanchez with a 9-1 record, ERA at 2.94. The Tigers have yet to announce their plans for their starting pitcher. The Blue Jays are up 5-0 here. Baltimore trailing 9-3 in Baltimore. The Orioles down to the Angels, bottom of the 7th. Two and two now. If those scores hold up, the Blue Jays will be within a game of the Orioles for first place.
We'll see who the Tigers put on the mound tomorrow. There's talk Matt Boyd could be given that start. Anibal Sanchez started in Cleveland. He would be due Sunday. It did not go well for Sanchez, so they've had some issues in that rotation.
Outside, it's now a 3-2 count.
Daniel Norris left the ball game on Monday in Cleveland with an oblique injury, put on the disabled list. Anibal Sanchez has been very inconsistent. Didn't get out of the 5th inning on Tuesday. Jordan Zimmerman placed on the disabled list, so it's been a real problem for this Tigers rotation here going into the break.
There goes Pilar. Marnie hits it to the vacated shortstop position. Kevin Pilar will go first to third. Darwin Marnie comes up with his second hit of the game. Textbook. They start the runner. The shortstop Iglesias covers, and Marnie pulls it right in the hole.
Well, the Tigers switched up the coverage here. Normally you would see the second baseman cover the bag. They think maybe Barney is an opposite field type hitter, may try to shoot it over there, the veteran, but it's the shortstop that covers the bag, and Darwin drives it right through the open left side.
So Barney's had a 2-hit night. Pilar's had a 2-hit night. Blue Jays now all of a sudden have 13 hits in this game. Mike Pelfrey, the starter, went 6 innings, allowed a single run on 6 hits. But the bullpen has been hit here tonight. That man right there doing the major damage, a 3-run home run off the bat of Edwin Encarnacion. Ezekiel Carrera. Outside 2-0, and Lowe's problems continue. He has not been able to command the strike zone. After the strikeout of Smoke, he's given up singles to Pilar and Marnie. Popped up over near the Blue Jays dugout, but that'll be out of play. The Tigers are on an 11-game road trip, while the Blue Jays are on an 11-game homestand. Now tipped into the catcher's glove. This is going to be into the seats, out of play. The Tigers, after the All-Star break, will have a 6-game homestand. Kansas City comes in for the first 3, and then Minnesota follows them into Comerica Park. Blue Jays will go on the road. Oakland and Anaheim, 5 games to start the second half of the season. And the Blue Jays are going to do some juggling of their pitching rotation. They have not made any formal announcement, but they're going to mix it up a bit. Obviously, with Marco Estrada on the disabled list, they'll probably go with 4 starters through those first 5 games. John Gibbons wants to give Marco Estrada as much rest as possible so they can be fairly sure that he has healed up with his back issues.
Marco's eligible on Monday the 18th, which is the off day before the 2 games in Arizona, and I don't think they want him swinging a bat in that interleague play, so there's a good chance you're not going to see Marco until that next homestand against the Mariners at the earliest.
There's a fly ball to right. Pilar is tagging at third. What an at-bat for Carrera. He battled and cashes in the runner from third. He picks up an RBI. Good job by Carrera.
Ezekiel continues to have good at-bats, and this was another one against Mark Lowe, fouling a lot of pitches off, staying alive, eventually getting that ball just deep enough to score Kevin Pillar for the Blue Jays' 6th run.
6-0 Blue Jays. Josh Donaldson singled in his first at bat. He's 1 for 4 tonight. For Donaldson, that's his 100th hit of the season, and he becomes the 29th Blue Jays to reach 100 hits before the All-Star break. Oh, 2 to Donaldson. And he's called out, strike 3. Joe West rings him up. A couple of strikeouts for Lowe, but the Blue Jays get an additional run in the 8th. Will go to the 9th. The Blue Jays shutting out the Tigers 6-0.
New initiative with Blue Jays Game Plus. Rogers customers can get a free VIP Blue Jays experience like an alumni meet and greet, seat upgrades, offers, and more with Game Plus, part of the MLB.com ballpark app. You can learn more about it at bluejays.com/Game Plus.
Thank you very much, Arash. We have reached the 9th inning, and the Blue Jays broke this game wide open in the 7th. They scored 4 runs in the bottom of the 7th. They added a run in the 8th. They now lead it 6-0. Justin Upton has struck out twice and he's walked. Joe, we talked about the bullpen at the start of our show tonight, and Jesse Chavez, an inning and a third. He gave up a base hit to the first batter he faced, but he stranded the bases loaded. And then he had a 1-2-3 7th. Bo Schultz had a 1-2-3 8th. And here he is pitching in the 9th.
That's why the bullpen is so important. We talked last night. If you're trailing by a run or two, your job is to keep it close so this offense can come back into the ball game. If you're up a run or two, of course you want to lock it down and shut things down like they're trying to do tonight. So no matter what the scenario, those guys down there need to be better in the second half of this season. We're already seeing signs of it. They're going to make this postseason run in the second half.
Now, they've got a lot of their pieces back in place now since Brett Cecil has come back. They added Jason Grilli. Osuna's been terrific. Biagini's been very good since they've given him some time, and he has re-energized himself. Bo Schultz, just a few appearances, but appears to be another effective piece. Osuna picked up the save in last night's game. Bouncing ball, Tulowitzki in the hole. The jump toss. Look at that play, folks. Oh my. Donaldson made a terrific play in the 5th inning, and now Tulowitzki may have topped that with this play in the 9th.
Absolutely unbelievable what Troy Tulowitzki has provided this Blue Jays defense when he came over at the trade deadline last year, ranging to his right, and he knows with Upton running he has to hurry. He does not have time to plant and throw. Off balance throw, but it's on the mark every single time. Nice job by Justin Smoak reaching out to make sure. Look at that, off of his left foot, off balance, but it's amazing what he still gets on that throw. His pitcher is his big fan.
Every aspect of the Blue Jays play is coming together. 2 more games before the All-Star break, Saturday and Sunday, and you know the Blue Jays want to carry as much momentum as possible into the midseason break. They're getting great pitching. The bullpen has stepped up. The offense has come around, led by this guy with his 80 RBIs. Edwin Encarnacion's had a great first half to his season, and he'll go to San Diego, part of a 4-player Blue Jay contingent, along with Josh Donaldson, Marco Estrada, and Michael Saunders. But the defense has been marvelous. The hitting seems to be contagious. Everybody having great at bats. We're seeing a lot of opposite field base hits, a lot of opposite field damage, and everybody seems to be right where they were last season in September into October. I'm sure you get asked this question all the time. Early in the season, people were very concerned about this ball club, and I said, just be patient. These guys are good. They have track records. They have done it before. Michael Saunders has bounced back. Russell Martin's offense has come around. Everything seems to be clicking here in the middle of July. 2 down. Now for a preview of what's coming up on Sportsnet Central. Here's Jackie Redmond and Eric Thomas. Thank you very much, Jackie and Eric. That's all coming up right after this ball game, so stay tuned for that. Mike Aviles takes the first pitch strike. 2 down, top of the 9th.
The nice thing about adding on here too, Roberto has worked the last 2 nights. It gives him a breather. Don't want to overwork your closer. Have him ready for games 3 and 4 of this series.
Ground ball, this should do it. Tulowitzki, it's short. That's the ball game, folks. The Blue Jays have won 7 in a row. They move to 11 games over 500. Jay Happ wins his 12th game of the season. That ties his career high in wins. Big night for the offense once again.
Well, Jay Happ was very good on the mound again. The pitch count got up there, but he struck out 9 taggers tonight. That's going to cost you some pitches. He was definitely good enough to hand the ball over to this bullpen. Jesse Chavez was excellent. Bo Schultz to close it out. But this offense and where they have come in the last month and a half, unbelievable. Medwood was the star of the show again tonight.
Baltimore is losing 9-3. The Blue Jays could be within a game of first place by the end of the night. We'll be back with you tomorrow. Aaron Sanchez goes to the mound. The Blue Jays win it 6-0. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned. Here's Sportsnet Central.